Covering the community, events, and people of Georgia, Carolina. This is the Means Report. Here is Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Means Report. So grateful to you for spending part of your day with us. I continue to give a warm welcome to our Monday viewers. We just added that. It's going on about 6 weeks ago now, in addition to our traditional Sunday time slot. So Sunday viewers, welcome back. Monday viewers, we welcome you for what is going to be an informational 23 minutes or so. I know it'll fly by, so we're going to get straight to it. All of today's broadcast is going to be spent with Congressman Jody Hice, he of Georgia's 10th Congressional District. We're going to take a look at the hard work facing he and his colleagues when they go back in session when it comes to our budget, trying to trim that fat, trying to stop that ever-growing deficit. We'll also talk about all of the hot issues that lawmakers on the Hill are facing, as well as issues that affect us right here at home. How can Congressman Hice help the 10th Congressional District, which includes a decent part of our viewing area? If you just kind of picture things on the map to the left of the greater Augusta and Columbia County area, then you can have a pretty decent mental image of Congressman Hice's territory. And Congressman, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
I appreciate all that you do.
We were talking about how life flies by, and your first term has flown by, at least from my perspective. Has it gone quickly for you, and how's it been your first time as a congressman?
Yeah, it really has flown. I can't hardly imagine that we're coming to the close of the first term and just knocking on the door for the next term. But it's flown by. The learning curve obviously has been huge as well, but we're settling in and realizing more and more that we're in the fight of our life for our country and to maintain the freedoms that we've had.
You don't have, I take that back, you do have an opponent, a write-in candidate by the name of Leonard Ware, but really, for all intents and purposes, no official party candidate opposing you. How do you interpret that? Seems like folks like you.
Well, I certainly am grateful for the opportunity to having served one term and appreciate the opportunity to go forward again. And I think that is a great statement of trust in what we're trying to accomplish and a good reflection of the values of the 10th District.
You've been working hard in your 2 short years up there as a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, trying to make sure that our federal agencies don't spiral out of control. You've already taken hard action, made tough decisions to get rid of several department heads. Tell me about the reason behind these efforts and how you think they're going so far.
Yeah, you know, I've thoroughly enjoyed the time on Oversight and Government Reform. We call it OGR. And through that, you know, I've really come to what I jokingly refer to the 3 branches of government that we now have is waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
And that really is the jurisdiction that Oversight has. Wherever there's waste, fraud, abuse, scandals, inefficiency, it comes under the jurisdiction of OGR, and obviously that's been an extremely busy committee over the last couple of years. But we have, as you referred to, there's been about 23 different heads of various departments that we have called for their removal from their position. And we've succeeded in removing 20 out of 23.
Any agencies that viewers might be familiar with? I know there are so many obscure government entities that we may have never even heard of. Any department heads that got the axe that we might say, wow, I can't believe you got rid of that guy?
National Park Service is one.
Why? What was that person doing wrong?
Well, there's been so many scandals within the park services, from sexual harassment to a host of other things, and they were just going unchecked. And you know, one of them right now, one of the 3 that we've not yet gotten, that we still continue to go after, is John Koskinen, who's head of the IRS. Mm-hmm. Of course, we all know how the IRS has been targeting conservatives and conservative organizations. And you know, you just think of that. It is unimaginable to think of any agency of our government targeting American citizens just because of their political views. But the IRS has done that.
You want to get rid of it, don't you?
I'd love to get rid of the IRS through the fair tax or some other means. But Koskinen has contributed to the problem, and so we are actually, as we go back this next week, we have a privilege motion so that within 2 days we will vote on the House floor regarding the impeachment of Koskinen. So we're continuing after him. That's one of those department heads that needs to go.
Let me ask you this. That sounds great, and it sounds like a wonderful piece of legislation to a lot of people, I'm sure. But do you have any support? Can we ever expect anything that drastic to happen? The head of the IRS getting the axe, the IRS itself being replaced by the fair tax?
Well, I mean, there's two different questions there. I think the answer to the first is yes, we can expect, I hope, to see some action on Koskinen. He was brought in to clean up the mess, to stop the targeting of American citizens. And instead of cleaning it up, he's been a huge part of the problem. He's disregarded subpoenas. There were at least 3 preservation orders, which means he was to preserve the tapes of the Lois Lerner tapes. Instead, he destroyed over 400 backup tapes that consisted of some 24,000 emails that were very significant to the investigation. So he has contributed to the problem. I think it's only fitting that we as a committee and that the American people expect us to get rid of bad actors like that. Whether or not we'll get rid of the IRS, your other question, I certainly hope so. We need tax reform in this country, and we have a better way that we're looking at with the Republican Party to deal with tax reform, and hopefully we'll be able to chip away significantly, if not altogether get rid of the IRS.
You know, you're no stranger to taking stands against the IRS. It was 2008 when then Pastor Jody Hice and more than 24 other ministers across the country took a stand against the IRS code that threatens the loss of a church's tax-exempt status if the preacher talks about political issues from the pulpit. Do you ever, as a guest pastor, I'm sure you still get those gigs, talk about political issues from the pulpit, and are you scared?
Oh, I'm not scared, but you know, I respect the various churches that I speak in, and I don't ever step across any lines there. I had more freedom and support with the church that I was pastoring at the time that we took on the IRS publicly from the pulpit, and you know that was an incredible experience there. But we're still continuing to fight that. You don't waive your First Amendment right simply because you're in church, and yet the IRS would want you to believe that. And so we're standing for the First Amendment. We're standing for the Constitution. And we're trying to introduce some legislation that will remove that particular code from the IRS code and maintain religious liberty and free speech.
I'm sure the answer to this question is no, but since you constantly poke the bear that is the IRS, have you noticed any difficulties in your own tax filings or dealings with your personal taxes, as if they're saying, don't mess with us, we'll make things tough?
Yes and no.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a recipient of some of that targeting myself, and even this past year I've received some things that raised a lot of question marks in my mind, but no, in the sense that there hasn't been anything blatant, but we certainly keep a watch and keep good records.
Continuing on the line of questioning that deals with your experience as a Baptist minister, 2 years up there in Washington, you've seen a lot of stuff. Are we still one nation under God? Are we a God-fearing land?
Oh, certainly there are millions of Americans who deeply hold to their religious beliefs, but I think it's pretty naive not to recognize that we are a nation in transition. And I saw even as recently as last week another poll that came out indicating that we are drifting further and further away from our traditional Judeo-Christian values in this country. And that is reason to be concerned, I believe, because when those fundamental principles and values disintegrate or dissolve or are pushed aside as antiquated, that impacts our entire society. And so, you know, there's reason to be concerned, obviously, on that.
Other than someone who's watching today working on their witnessing skills and trying to be good role models, how can we turn this around? How can we get our country back to those values you mentioned, or can we?
Yeah, we can. You know, one of the great things about America that has not changed, and frankly, when this light came on inside of me, it's what ushered me into greater involvement politically, is the understanding that our system of government here in America does not work without involvement of the people. Mm-hmm. It is only as the people, average people, get engaged in the system. It is we, the people, who have the voice. And you know, that is probably the greatest message that I have as I go about speaking and encouraging people to step up to the plate, understanding we not only have a responsibility, we've got a great privilege in this country that our voice matters. And so we can turn this around. There's no question we're behind the 8 ball in many regards, but this is a country of the people still, and we can turn things around.
What place is there for Muslims in this country, people who profess loyalty to Islamic motivations or goals? Where's a spot for them in America?
There's the same spot for them as there is for any other citizen of this country. I mean, we are a country that gives freedom of people to believe or to not believe if they so choose, and they have the right to do so. But what we're watching these days is more and more hostility towards people of faith, and I think that's one area that we certainly need to guard against and to maintain our religious liberties, as well as the right for people to disagree with us.
When the Means Report continues, we continue our conversation with Congressman Jody Hice. We'll cover national issues, including the ongoing war on terror. Can you believe it's been 15 years since 9/11? How are things going since? Also, cybersecurity and our role here in the CSRA when it comes to that important issue. We'll be right back.